Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Lowdown Podcast. And we are going to be going over part two, yes, of this mock draft, all 32 picks. And we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right to the pick, and it is going to be Bengals selecting Cam Ward, trading Joe Burrow, starting from. No, I'm kidding. That is
Oh,
not at all. That is not at all. Yeah. We just have them getting Josh Simmons from Ohio State, not having to take a far trip to his NFL team and just helping Joe Burrow stay upright. Because that man almost single handedly dragged Cincinnati to the playoffs. If it wasn't for that last game in Kansas City, who knows? but,
I
but
agree.
we just have Cincinnati getting a lineman there.
I really think that they've got everything. They had Trey Hendrickson leading the league in sacks. They
Yeah.
Joe Burrow leading the league in passing yards. And Jamar Chase was up there too.
He won the Triple Crown.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. Get him
And
enough.
they have one of my favorite up and coming players, Cameron Taylor-Britt,
Yeah.
at corner. I love his game, man. I don't know if he gets I haven't heard a lot of national media guys talk about him, but every time I'm watching the Bengals, entire defense, Hendrickson, Cameron Taylor-Britt, Hendrickson, every time.
Yeah, no, I like that pick a lot.
Yeah,
I'm
me too.
not gonna mess around with this one with the Seattle Seahawks now on the clock at 18. They actually do nice quarterback behind Geno Smith and actually get Cam Ward. He falls into their lap. Unbelievable. And Mike McDonald has an opportunity to revamp this offense, which has already got a lot of really good weapons. Kenneth Walker III, you've got him next to Charbonnet. It's a really good 1-2 punch you have.
Yeah.
Really good receivers. You give them a year to develop under Geno Smith. Maybe if Geno Smith doesn't have the best year, you let Cam Ward start a little bit. I love the pick of Cam Ward going to Seattle.
I love it too, man. And talk about being Cam Ward in his shoes. Well, that'd be the best scenario to fall into. Yeah, you fell into the draft, but would you rather be there or Cleveland? Would you rather be throwing to Metcalf, Lockett for his 80th season, or Jackson Smith and Jigba, who looks like he's one of the next, elite receivers in this? Yeah, I like Cam Ward going here, and I'm sure he would like that too. Next we have another, seems to be a trending topic, but we're going to go big boy again. We're going Tate Rutledge, the first interior offensive lineman off the board. And I have gained so much respect for the interior, the big boys inside. This year, not having any on my NFL team, I've really gained some appreciation for it. And Rutledge looks to be the cream of the crop of this draft. It's just a big boy down there in Georgia. And I would love to see Tampa Bay having more time in the pocket for Baker Mayfield to make his plays, because it seemed like so many times this year, right when he says hike, he's scrolling out of that pocket, whether by design or not, buying himself extra time, stiff arming Nick Bosa to throw in, just trying to make anything happen. Even in their, playoff loss, he put it all out there, man. So I think you just got to give someone who buy more time and getting the best interior man up who can do the job. I think that's the way to go.
Creeping wasn't the worst. He's creeping up slowly into the draft boards. I like that pick a lot. I haven't seen a lot of folks talking about him, so that's a good pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Baker certainly could use some. He's a great playmaker with his feet, but he could use some more time.
Yeah, he's probably getting tired. He probably would say.
All right, so Denver has a really good defense. They did struggle, obviously, a bit against Buffalo in the playoffs. And why not solidify that back end? Pat Surtain is really good. I'm looking at them going for a safety in Malachi Starks. He needs to work a little bit on coverage. He's not bad, but he's one of those I'm going to get in your face type of safeties. I think Malachi Starks is going to turn it into an elite secondary.
I love that. A guy who can just clog up that middle, sub linebacker.
Yeah.
That middle spot. Good zone player. I like the scheme. It seems to be a perfect kind of Denver style where he's just floating in that middle spot.
Yeah.
Good tackler. not out of this world speed, but kind of how they play, how they use Brian Branch in Detroit. But they use him as the inside and outside, like nickel
Yeah,
sometimes. But I could see Denver using Starks in that role just in the inside. Just stay here. We'll have our corners do their jobs outside, and you just dominate this center of the field.
Pittsburgh, they're next on the clock.
Okay, in Pittsburgh, they are going to get Luther Burden III out of Mizzou. He's not going to have to change his jersey colors at all. He's going to go from black and yellow to black and yellow, right back at it. I know that the Steelers have, had their struggles at receivers, just trading Deontay Johnson. They have George Pickens, but he's always kind of starting not to be worth all the trouble that comes with him. They drafted Roman Wilson in the third round last year, but I don't think he got any playing time this year. So I see them grabbing a receiver in the front of this draft, and it's very uncommon for the Steelers to get a receiver early. We haven't really seen that in the Mike Tomlin era, but it's their clear biggest flaw is their explosiveness on offense.
Yeah.
I think the smartest thing for them to do is to bring an explosive wide receiver. Luther Burden III. It's a tongue twister, okay? Luther Burden III is hard to say.
Yeah.
I see them bringing him in from Mizzou and just getting the party started over there. Maybe him, George Pickens can have a nice little 1-2 punch out there wide. Whoever's out there throwing them the rock.
Yeah, he's a good deep threat. I think complement George Pickens really well. All right, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers. We've got Jim Harbaugh. Could he bring back one of his Michigan boys?
I think he does.
He loves it. Starts in the trenches. How about we go Kenneth Grant from the University of Michigan, plugging up the middle in Los Angeles? They do need help on that interior defensive line, and I think Kenneth Grant is just the guy for it. Familiarity with Jim Harbaugh, of course, but a really powerful guy in the interior. And so I have them going DT at their pick. You already have Bosa on the edge, so get somebody who really dominates that run game on the interior.
When you can get a big guy who could be a default run stuffer, and you can keep him on the field to a pass rush from the
Yep.
inside, like Aaron. That's why Aaron Donald was so freaking awesome, man. I love the big boy who can pass rush. And next, we're gonna stay with that Midwest vibes and go over to Green Bay, but they're gonna get someone far from the Midwest. They're gonna go all the way to East Carolina, the Pirates. Any CJ2K fans know of this college, but they're gonna go down there and get Siobhan Ravel Jr., a corner, physical guy. We know Packers have had trouble with their cornerback situations of late, and he looks to be the best cornerback available at this spot. I don't see them going up in the draft to try to get one of these Will Johnson, Starks, or even getting your guy from Texas. I don't see it happening. They've always been a stick pick, collect picks, draft back. But I think Ravel is actually a really good pick in this spot for what they need. Their number one need is corner. He's one of the most talented guys left on the board, and I like the marriage of that.
Yeah, it's a good pick, and I'm not biased in any way because he picked me off 5 times in NCAA college football. But no, to be all honest, he's a raw guy for sure. But he's tall. I think he runs 6'2", and that's something Green Bay could use right now with the likely departure of Jair Alexander. They're
Yeah.
corner to pop him in, and so at 6'2", he's a really good but raw coverage guy. I think he has a lot of upside if he can get coached. It'd be great if you could keep Jair Alexander maybe on a 1-year deal, kind of coach him up.
Have Jair play outside where he likes. And our Packers insider tells us that their biggest weakness is definitely the inside corner spot, that nickel corner spot, where they've had a hole for where Nixon plays and where Owens used to play. That kind of spot, they're missing something there, and I think Ravel can fill that hole.
Does it pain you that I am going to be picking for your team?
A little bit, and if it's what I think, I can live with this. I can live with this because it's two merges.
All right. How about TJ Sanders, an interior defense tackle for the Minnesota Vikings? We've got them picking at 24 from South Carolina. I know you're a watcher of the South Carolina Gamecocks, so you know how good this guy can be in the interior.
I absolutely would love this as a Minnesota Vikings fan. If TJ Sanders came down and fell to 25, this is a perfect draft for Minnesota because what we need interior big boys, offensively and defensively. That's our two biggest needs, and that's very deep in this draft, along with running backs, another team need. I don't. I like them getting an interior guy. TJ Sanders is by far the best interior defensive lineman available at this point. It's a steal to get him at this draft. Or at this point in the draft. I love it. Just the thought of him working with Brian Flores next to Harrison Phillips, who's kind of been the anchor playing out of position. Those two, and then those two play next to each other and next to Van Ginkel, Grenard, Turner. I like it. I like it a lot. Who we got next? We have
Houston Texans.
Houston Texans, and they're getting someone from their state in Isaiah Bond. I know it's a strange pick, but Diggs could leave this year. Tank Dell is probably going to be out all year with that horrific injury, but they're still in win now mode. They still got CJ Stroud on his rookie contract. They just re signed Nico Collins. They got to give them some help. And getting Isaiah Bond, an absolute deep threat to stay in the state of Texas and play. That's another one of those perfect marriage picks. I would love to see Isaiah Bond in a Texans jersey next year.
Good pick. I don't. I understand why you would say, "It's a strange." I like that a lot. I do think, given the circumstance at receiver for them, they could use another one, and they have a very good defense already. They have a very good offense, so why not add another weapon? How about we go to the other Los Angeles team picking at 26? Matt Stafford is, well, he's been running around since he was in Detroit. Help the man, give him an offensive tackle. I think that's what they're going to go with here. Cameron Williams from Texas, a big guy to help keep Stafford upright, because we know the Rams, man, they've got a lot of weapons. And as long as Stafford is upright, they're a threat to go to the big game at the end of the season next year. So I have them just beefing up that offensive line in the first round.
I like it. I say with the team they have, they already shored up their defense over the past 2 years with the excellent drafts they've had. They got a lot of young players over there. If they help their defense, I think they're going to get late round draft picks or free agents. I can't see them spending another early draft pick on a defensive player after they've done it so many consecutive drafts. And yeah, buy Stafford some more time. I love it. Just beef up that line, give them some more time, and they keep creeping up. They were supposed to be bad last year. Any of you Rams haters, they are not going anywhere. They're going to be sticking around. They're going to be fighting till the end. I like that pick. Sure up that line. And after the Rams pick, we got Baltimore selecting, and I love Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. He's a freak of nature. He's 6'7". He can play that kind of Calais Campbell role that they kind of been missing ever since, even though he's 40 whatever years old, since he departed, went to Miami. They kind of missed that big interior pass rush that they can get from the edge hybrid interior spot, and Landon Jackson really fills that role, and he just feels like a Baltimore Raven. When you look at him, you watch how he plays, it just seems like a perfect fit for both player and team.
Yeah, when I was looking at players, he's one of my higher graded players in terms of the pass rush ability. And I think that he just screams Baltimore Raven.
Doesn't he? His just his frame, his stature, his style of play. It's just like this. This is a Raven right here.
Well, we've got another pass rusher going to the Detroit Lions, who, as many know, struggled at the tail end with the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. Detroit really could use some depth, and I think they're going to go edge rusher here out of Ohio State and get Jack Sawyer to generate a bit more pressure opposite of Hutch. Even if he's a rotational guy, you need somebody. It's clear that they need some sort of pass rush help on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. So I think.
And I would love the competitiveness of Jack Sawyer and Aiden Hutchinson in the same coaching room. How much they'd be getting after
Yeah,
Ohio State, Michigan. And those who don't know or don't remember, Jack Sawyer was the player who fought the Michigan player for putting the flag on his field after, and then the Michigan fans say, if you don't like it, beat us, So
but
this huge rivalry
yeah,
between
and Jack
Michigan and
has that type of energy that matches Dan Campbell's too.
oh, well, is Jack Sawyer allowed in the state of Michigan? It's the real it's the real question. But I love the pick, the fit, and that would be a hell of a story if Jack Sawyer and Aiden Hutchinson were in the same room. That coaching staff would get the best out of both of them. Next up, Washington. And we have this guy that you like a lot getting selected by Washington, another young, favorable team. Is going to be selecting Trey Harris from Ole Miss, a big physical wide receiver. Seems like someone who can do it all. Um, it's kind of like been sneaky on people's radars, kind of slowly climbing up. And I I'm kind of a late Trey Harris fan as well. I just recently have been watching what he can do, and I'm kind of curious myself how a lot of people haven't been paying attention to Trey Harris. And I'm starting to like what I'm seeing. And if he was able to fall to Washington to be the complement to Terry McLaurin
Mhm.
in that offense,
Yeah,
oh,
he
what a
might
1-2 punch.
end up going a bit earlier in next versions of our mock drafts because I agree with you. Trey Harris has been improving on my radar, and he's kind of that receiver who can do it all. On to the Buffalo Bills, and I almost want you to make this pick. I'm gonna make my pick here, and because I feel like we talked about something like this, and then I'll let you chime in. But I've got Buffalo going with Mike Green from Marshall, and it's got a little bit of a wrestling background. From what I understand, this isn't the first time that Buffalo would do something like this.
No, Buffalo actually just last year signed a Olympic wrestler to their team in the preseason, and they let him play. And they like going after these kind of players. And then Mike Green is like the elite version of this. He has this wrestling background, and he has been soaring up people's draft boards when they are seeing his talent. He's coming from that small school of Marshall. So he doesn't get the type of recognition he would get if he was playing for Alabama but is an absolute elite talent. And the way things have been going, he might not be here for the Bills to take him. But if he is still on the board when the Bills select, that is a steal for Buffalo. And I love Mike Green going to the Bills.
This one is controversial because we're not here yet, but we've got Philadelphia at number 31 taking the L. Who are they picking?
We
Familiar
got
College?
we of course, you can call it a little bit of, being a troll, taunting, whatever, but we got a Georgia edge rusher here, Michael Williams. Brandon Graham's retiring. We got to get the Georgia edge rusher. Michael Williams is going to the Philadelphia Eagles here, assuming they lose to the Chiefs, which foreshadowing a little bit. But I love the pick here. I love them just sticking to their guns, getting their Georgia edge rusher, and filling a need on their team. It's
Yeah,
perfect.
they're always going defensive line no matter what. And if there's a good defensive lineman there, we saw it with Jalen Carter, they're going to get him. So I like a lot. And that
Especially if they're from Georgia.
and that leads us to our last pick of our one round mock draft 1.0, and the Kansas City Chiefs selecting Derek Harmon from Oregon. Defensive tackle, we know Chris Jones is getting up there in age. We don't know how much longer he's going to be there. I mean, you've won how many Super Bowls? He's probably said, I've got enough rings. I'm feeling good. Uh,
Yeah, he'll
why
be
not?
entering his second of his third year of his extension next year.
Yeah, why not? Why not get a young guy in there, learn from one of the best DTs, nose tackles? And I really think looking at some of Harmon's stuff, he could go earlier than 32, but if he falls into their lap, why not? Definitely one of the best run defenders in this draft.
Getting Derek Harmon with the last pick of the first round is an absolute steal, no matter what organization you are. And it being the Kansas City Chiefs, who have the Chris Jones, who's on his last 2 years, they could extend him, but realistically, last 2 years, having Derek Harmon sit behind him and still having 3 years on his rookie contract with that fifth-year option. Oh my gosh, they're just breeding these defensive freaks. I love it. I love it for Kansas City, or if it's Philadelphia who ends up picking 32, but we have it here as Kansas City winning. And yeah, Derek Harmon there. I like it. It's perfect.
So what's your favorite pick of the draft, do you think? We got our 32 picks out there. Is there one that really pops out to you?
There's a couple. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about Will Johnson again.
If you missed that, go to the first podcast.
Yeah, if you missed that, go to the first podcast. The second half, it may seem very biased, but I'm going to go TJ Sanders to Minnesota. The reason I'm saying this is because their absolute biggest need outside of their interior offensive line, which if our guy Ratledge from Georgia isn't there, I don't think there's a interior offensive line worth taking at that spot. And TJ Sanders still being there, filling an immediate need at that, edge rusher spot with Brian Flores. I think he's someone who could be immediately impact, immediately start, and cause a difference in that defense. So in that hand of the draft, I really like that. Obviously, Isaiah Bond and Landon Jackson were two other ones I really liked, but TJ Sanders to Minnesota there at that 24 spot. That's my favorite pick.
My favorite has to be Cam Ward falling to the laps of Seattle Seahawks at 18. You couldn't ask for a better opportunity to get your franchise quarterback at such a late round, and what many have graded the number one or number two quarterback in this draft. So I really like that. We want to know your takes if you liked our mock draft number one. This is only 1.0. We've got more mock drafts down the road. And of course, we've got a lot more in terms of our podcast. We've been teasing it for a couple of weeks now. It's the free agency / draft quarterback. You kind of know a little bit now based on our draft picks, but we've got more in depth coming in just a couple of weeks.
We've been giving you some hints, a little bit of foreshadowing, and kind of project which way we're going with these free agency quarterbacks. Now that you see our mock draft, you probably get a little bit more of a projection, but we're trying to stay off the typical path that everyone's taken with our picks. We just go in different directions and see where it takes us.
Well, that should do it for our final part of the mock draft episode. This is a two-part, so if you missed the first part, go ahead and check out the video before on YouTube. Also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Lowdown Podcast. I'm Austin Lowe.
I'm Cameron Lowe.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.